Good morning, students. This is ninth part of the chapter The Enemy. As we all know very well that this chapter highlights how a Japanese doctor saves the life of an American prisoner of war and rises above narrow national prejudices. Prejudices. He risks his honor, career, position, and life by sheltering a war prisoner of the enemy camp and saving his life. Then we have come to know that the story is set during the Second World War. A Japanese doctor finds an American prisoner of war at his doorstep. He is in dilemma that being a doctor, should he save the wounded man, or being a Japanese, should he hand over the enemy to the army. Then further we have come to know the summary what. Sadao was a Japanese surgeon. He studied in America and returned with Hana, a Japanese girl whom he met there at Professor Harley's house, and married her in Japan and settled down comfortably. While most of the doctors were sent to serve the Japanese army in the World War II, Sadao was allowed to stay home because he was wanted by the old general. I have explained you in my previous videos. And because he was wanted by the old general who was dying. But one night into his uneventful life came an American Navy man, shot, wounded and dying. Though unwilling to help his enemy, Sadao took the young soldier into his house and provided him with medical aid. He was in threat. Sadao was in threat. Sadao was in danger, means of being caught. But being a doctor, it was his in his mind that being a doctor, he should first of all treat the injured man. Then we have come to know that Sadao did the operation very successfully, and we have come to know the servants of the house were ignoring the prisoner of war, and they did not want to serve him, and they were planning to leave the house, but still they had not left. Then as for Sadao, every day he examined the wound carefully. Means now I would like to mention over here 7 days had been passed. 7 दिन निकल चुके हैं ऑपरेशन होने के बाद में. The last stitches had been pulled out this morning, and the young man would in a fortnight be nearly as well as ever. Sadao went back to his office and carefully typed a letter to the chief of the police, reporting the whole matter. On the 21st of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of my house. So far he typed, and then he opened a secret drawer of his desk and put the unfinished report into it. So Sadao was performing his role perfectly. He would examine the wound every day. One morning the last stitches were removed from the injured man's body, and he would be as well as ever in the next 15 days. In the meantime, Sadao went to his office because now it was the time to inform the police, and he had already done his duty as a doctor. Now it was a time to be a real patriotic person. So that's why he would like to write a letter. So Sadao went to his office and wrote a letter to the chief of the police to report the entire matter to him. So started his report, and he wrote that on the 21st of February, what happened on the 21st of February? An escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of his house. Sadao had just typed this much of the report. He opened the drawer of his desk and kept this unfinished report into it. Then we have come to know on the seventh day after that, means what? That on the seventh day, stitches were open. Open. We know very well. On the 7th day, after the operation of the 7th day, two things happened in the morning. The servants left together, their belongings tied in the large square cotton kerchiefs. एक बड़े से कपड़े में बंधा हुआ था उनका सामान. When Hannah got up in the morning, nothing was done. The house not cleaned, and food not prepared, and she knew what it meant. She was dismayed and even terrified. But her pride as a mistress would not allow her to show it. Instead, she inclined her head gracefully when they appeared before her in the kitchen, and she paid them off and thanked them for all that they had done for. They were crying, but she did not cry. The cook and the gardener had served Sadao since he was a little boy in his father's house, and Yumi cried because of the children. She was so grieving. She was so grieving. And after she had gone, she ran back to Hannah. If the baby misses me too much tonight, if the baby misses me too much tonight, send for me. I'm going to my own house, and you know where it is. And you know where it is. Okay. Thank you, Hannah said, smiling, but she told herself she would not send for Yumi. However, the baby cried. She made the breakfast and Sadao helped with the children. Neither of them spoke of the servants beyond the fact that they were gone. But after Hannah had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back to Sadao. Why is it we cannot see clearly what we ought to do? She asked him. Even the servants see more clearly than we do. Why are we different from other Japanese? Hannah ने पूछा उसको. So, on the 7th day after that, two things happened. The servants of the house left in the morning. They had tied their belongings in huge pieces of cloth. When Hannah got up in the morning, she saw that the work had not been done. The house was dirty and the food had not been cooked. She realized that the servants were up to something. She was shocked and horrified when she came to know that the servants were leaving. Hannah did not show her feelings to the servants. Instead, she remained calm and maintained her grace as the lady of the house. She paid the servants and thanked them for their long services. As the servants had been working there for many years, they were crying, but Hannah did not cry. The cook and the gardener were very old employees. They had been employed by Sadao's father and served Sadao since his childhood. Yumi was crying because she would miss the children. She was so sad that she ran up to Hannah after that she had left. Okay. And Yumi said to Hannah that if the baby missed her at night, she could call her. She further added that she was going to her own house and Hannah knew where her house was. लेकिन Hannah ने प्लान किया था कि चाहे बेबी कितना भी रोए, पर Hannah उसको नहीं कॉल करेगी. Okay. Then we have come to know that she made the breakfast. Next morning, Hannah prepared the breakfast and Sadao helped her by looking after the children. Neither of them talked regarding the servants, but after Hannah served the morning food to the prisoner of war, she came back to Sadao probably to talk something. And Hannah was very worried. और उसने क्वेश्चन किया that why they were not very clear about what they ought to do. She added that even their servants were very clear as compared to them. She said कि क्यों हम बाकी जापानीज से अलग हैं. She said that क्यों हम बाकी जापानीज से अलग हैं. Okay. And Hannah wanted to say that Americans were their enemies. They should not have treated the prisoner of war and they should have let him die just like other Japanese. कि हमें इसे मरने देना था. Fine. Now Sadao did not say anything. Sadao did not answer, but a little later he went into the room where the prisoner was and said briskly, today. उसने उसको कुछ नहीं कहता अपनी वाइफ को और वो चुपचाप prisoner of war के रूम में जाता है. Okay, fine. Sadao did not answer, did not reply. But after some time he went into the room. उसके वो रूम में जाता है where the prisoner of war was resting and spoke very fast. और उसको बोलता है, tomorrow you may try. I want you to stay up only 5 minutes at a time. कि तुम अब आज से खड़े हो जाओ 5 मिनट के लिए. And tomorrow you may try twice as long. It would be well that you get back your strength as quickly as possible. He saw the flicker of terror on the young face that was still very pale. डॉक्टर ने देखा सदाओ ने कि उसकी आंखों में बिल्कुल क्या था, टेरर था. किसकी? Prisoner of war. Okay, the boy murmured. Evidently, he was determined to say more. I feel I ought to thank you, doctor, for having saved my life. Don't thank me too early, Sadao said coldly. He saw the flicker of terror again in the boy's eye, terror as unmistakable as an animal's. The scars on his neck were crimson for a moment. Crimson means reddish. Those scars, what were they? Sadao did not ask. Okay. So Sadao did not reply. Sadao did not reply to Hana, but after some time he went into the room. He went into the room where the prisoner of war was resting and spoke very fast. He said that that day the man could get up and stand on his feet. Sadao wanted him to stand only for 5 minutes at a time. आज 5 मिनट खड़े होना. Further he added that the next day he could try to stand for double the time, that is 10 minutes. Sadao also said that it would be good for everyone that the man regained strength as soon as possible. Why? Sadao hinted that they wanted to get rid of the American as early because he had become a cause of trouble for them. सदाओ ने उसकी आंखों में क्या देखा था? सदाओ सॉ फ्लिकर ऑफ टेरर. सदाओ ने उसकी आंखों में डर देखा. हिज फेस वॉज वेरी स्टिल, वेरी पेल एंड कलरलेस बिकॉज ही वॉज वेरी वीक. बॉय ने कहा ओके एंड वो और कुछ भी कहना चाहता था. ओके बट ही जस्ट सेड दैट ही वांटेड थैंक्स सदाओ फॉर सेविंग हिज लाइफ. बट सदाओ ने कहा कि ये बहुत जल्दी होगा. डोंट थैंक मी टू अर्ली. सदाओ वॉज वेरी एक्सप्रेशनलेस व्हेन ही सेड दैट द बॉय डिड नॉट नीड टू थैंक हिम येट. Okay, and as he spoke this, he saw that the hint of scare again appeared in the boy's eyes. Okay, the injury marks on the neck of the boy turned bright red in color for a while. Sadao ne kuch socha, but he did not ask the boy about them. Then in the afternoon, point to be noted, 7th day, two things happened. First thing, servants left the house, and in the afternoon second thing happened. Hannah, working hard on unaccustomed labor, saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform. Her hands went weak and she could not draw her breath, क्योंकि उसको लगा उसको पकड़ने आ गए सदाओ को. The servants must have told already. She ran to Sadao, gasping, unable to utter a word. But by then the messenger had simply followed her through the garden, and there he stood. She pointed at him helplessly. Sadao looked up from his book. He was in his office, the other partition of which was thrown open to the garden for the southern sunshine. What is it? He asked the messenger, and then he rose, seeing the man's uniform. You are to come to palace, the man said. The old journal is in pain again. Oh, Hannah breathed. Is that all? All, the messenger exclaimed. Is it not enough? Indeed it is, she replied. I am very sorry. So that day, the second incident happened in the afternoon. Hannah was busy with the household work as the servant had left. All of a sudden, she had to perform all the work which was not used to do. She was very tired and she saw that a messenger wearing official uniform had come to house. As she saw him, her hands went weak and she was unable to breathe. Why? Because she felt that the servants must have told the authorities that they were sheltering an enemy. Hannah ran up to Sadao and she was struggling to breathe. She was unable to speak. By that time, the messenger also followed her through the garden and he stood in front of Sadao. Hannah was helpless and she pointed her finger towards the messenger. Okay. Sadao was reading a book at that time, and when he saw Hannah, he looked up. He was sitting in his office which had a partition in it. The part of the office beyond the partition opened into the garden. Sadao ने messenger को देखा. Messenger को देख के पूछा messenger the matter due to which he had visited them. When he saw that the messenger was wearing a uniform, he stood up as a mark of respect. Messenger said that Sadao was supposed to accompany him to the palace. He added that the old journal was suffering in pain and Sadao was supposed to visit him and treat him as a doctor. Upon hearing him, this Hannah was relieved and she said, "Oh," with this, she took a deep breath and asked that was all. Itna hi, for which the messenger had come. Messenger reacted and said all. He could not understand that what else could be for which he was supposed to visit the house. और मैं क्यों आऊँगा यहाँ पे बताओ? He asked that was that not enough? Did they want any other reason for him to visit them? Hannah was sorry for her reaction and said that the reason was enough for the messenger to visit them. When Sadao came to say goodbye, she was in kitchen but doing nothing. The children were asleep and she sat merely resting for a moment, more exhausted from her fright than from work. Okay, and then we have come to know that Sadao means what happened. Sadao had to accompany the messenger. He went to Hannah to say goodbye. Hannah was in kitchen but she was not doing anything. The children had gone to sleep and Hannah was taking rest. She was more tired due to she was more tired due to the scare on seeing the messenger, and then she was from doing the household work. Then further we have come to know that Sadao goes to see the journal. Sadao went to see the journal. In my next video, I will explain you that what would be the conversation between journal and Dr. Sadao. Okay, and would journal try to save him or not? We will see in the next video. I hope that you all will go through the chapter very carefully, and still if you feel any problem, please ask me on messenger, on WhatsApp or messenger, or on Scholar ERP. Thank you. Have a nice day.